This was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Edo Phoenix. Hi, Jim. I would like to find out who is your valedictorian from the class that included John Cena, Batista, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, and Shelton Benjamin.
Oh, good Lord. Well, the valedictorian is generally chosen as the best student, right? The highest achiever. You can say that Shelton was the best student because of the bunch of those guys. He was the best athlete and picked up the in-ring performance aspect of the business the best. You can say Cena was because he ended up having the most success of any of those guys on a regular basis. Brock has been more successful in different fields, but goddamn, that's more. Brock Lesnar's success has been more due to his genetics and physical capabilities rather than any hard work he put into it. Whereas Shelton was hard work. Cena was hard work. Orton, it came more naturally to, and he didn't work as hard at the beginning, but he was much more natural than Brock, and he's had the longest career. Who else was named in there, or was there?
Batista.
Now, he was more like the guy that you asked to stay behind in detention a time or two. I gotta say, I mean, Cena for the success and Shelton for being the best student of the bunch.
Compared to when these guys were actually called up to the main roster, what did you think the actual order of when they should have been called up to the main roster should have been?
That was very wordy.
Thank you.
Well, I'm trying to think back now. I mean, once again, I would have liked to have had each one of them longer than I did because they still had learning to do. It wasn't like that they were, old pros. I think I was worried when they brought John up because obviously they didn't have any specific idea for him because the first several there, not several, but at least first couple they tried didn't work out. The fucking happy, smiling, ha-ha, he made a splash, but they didn't like his gimmick. And then he was in danger until he rapped. Batista, they got him. Look at him. Look at the fucking state of him. And they fucking covered him up and, had him carrying Devon's box around. I was most comfortable. I figured they probably weren't going to screw Randy up, but I was afraid Randy might screw himself up attitude-wise in those days. I don't know. I felt all of them. Brock would be the most bulletproof one because how the fuck do you fuck that up? And they didn't. But and Brock was already gone from OVW by the time that they called him up. So they didn't really call him up from here. So I didn't really give a fuck at that point. See, remember, that's when he had a previous girlfriend. He got pregnant before Sable. And she was going to have a baby, and he was constantly browbeating the office to let him go back to Minnesota because his girlfriend was going to have a baby. He just wanted to get out of Louisville. He didn't like training. He didn't like fucking. Brock doesn't like anything. He doesn't like associating with humans, which, believe me, that's highly overrated. But I don't know a lot of people want to associate with Brock. He wanted to get out of Louisville. He didn't want to train. He just wanted to collect his check at home in Minnesota and work out with Brad Ringens. So they sent him back home for about 6 months, and then they brought him up to the main roster.
Whether it worked out or not, who was in your eyes, the biggest can't-miss prospect you had in OVW?
Well, like I said, it was almost impossible to fuck Brock up. The idea was Brock ever going to get the picture enough? Because he wasn't a natural and he didn't like wrestling. But when he turned it on and tried, he could do it. Truthfully, after the first several, I was nervous about everybody because, look, they had many more misses than they had hits. And especially with the guys that they didn't sign to begin with and send here, but that we found and then they signed afterwards. they were always the more expendable ones because they didn't want it to look like they were signing the wrong guys and sending them down here, even though they were signing the wrong guys and sending them down here. So I was always nervous whenever anybody went up because you never knew what would happen. And like I said, they fucking ruined the Bashams, they ruined Jeter, Chris Cage, Mark Magnus. I mean, you know, the list goes on and on. Dinsmore. So it was a rotten track record, and most of the best talent. The reason why Orton, Cena, Lesnar, Batista, that group gets all the attention is because as time went on, we started getting there. Instead of Jim Ross and a creative team under Vince, we went into the comedy writer and the fucking creative team era. And JR stepped down from talent relations. We got replaced with Laurinaitis. So as a result, we didn't have guys as long. We didn't have guys unobstructed without them getting in the way and fucking with their heads or giving them a gimmick in the middle of training that they, you know, had never seen before. Whatever the fuck. There was a lot more up in the air bullshit and changes after that happened. And that's when they really burnt through a lot of great fucking talent. They weren't going to fuck Orton up because he was second generation. Brock was an NCAA champion. Cena was, I mean, look at him. He had all the tools. But once you got past that, and then we were allowed to have him for a while, year and a half, whatever the case may be. Once it got past that, then they started really fucking with everything. And then, you know, from 03 to 05, they shit on and ran off more guys than they actually brought in and gave good spots to. That's why a lot of those guys quit the business from that era, when they could still be working and still be in their 30s.